Good evening. The time is now 7 o'clock. I would like to call the order the Beloit City Council meeting. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Roll call shows all 7 city councilors are present.
The next item is Pledge of Allegiance. May you all stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The next item is special orders of the day and announcements. We don't have any. Item 4 is public hearings. Can we have 4A, please?
Item 4A is the 2011 Community Development Block Grant Proposed Budget and Annual Action Plan. There was a Community Development Authority recommendation for approval.
And before we have the discussion on this, I would like to Councilor DeForest has just excused herself from this discussion. The reason being she is employed by one of the agencies who are going to be allocated funds to, so under the law she cannot be part of this discussion, and we will be bringing her back in after we discuss this item. With that, may we have staff presentation, please?
Sure. The Community Development Block Grant budget is incorporated into the 2011 Annual Action Plan, which identifies how the city is going to meet its housing, homeless, public housing, and community development needs. It gets incorporated into the document, which you may have noticed that there were blanks, and it was actually highlighted in red, which we will fill in following council approval of the budget. But right now, because that plan is a draft until we get the budget approved, there are some gaps in there. But why don't we start with the budget? The budget process, essentially how that works, is in July, early August, we ask for applications from all the nonprofit agencies in the city. We give them 3 to 4 weeks to fill out the application. They submit them. They give presentations to the CDA, and then the CDA makes a recommendation. And this is the actual recommended budget from the CDA. This is the public service section. There is a cap of 15% set by HUD. In this case, the cap is actually set at about 12.5% because we can't go over the 15% cap in terms of expenditures, and just to ensure that if we had money not spent in public services, the CDA board did recommend a 12.5% cap. The last column shows the CDA recommendation. Community action is recommended for 24,625. The key for 7,000. The Emergency Housing and Case Management Program, which is the Domestic Violence Center, 7,000. Home Companion Registry, 20,000. Homelessness Prevention and Rehousing, 3,500. Hands of Faith, 7,500. Merrill Community Center, 24,625. NHS's Foreclosure Prevention Program, 15,000. State Land Literacy Council's programs, 20,000. Voluntary Action Beloit Senior Chore Service, 7,000. As a general rule, the CDA did not recommend new programs. The only new program that they recommended was the foreclosure prevention program because they felt that was a great need in the community. This slide shows the remaining grant budget. We are estimating a total of $730,000 in new grant dollars. The remaining below the basically below the line, below your 15% for public service, is being allocated as shown on this sheet. $140,000 for program administration, $20,000 for EOHRC's fair housing. That will provide for fair housing education outreach as well as handling complaints. For code enforcement, $236,771. They recommended 0 for the Euclid Green Space Project. For community actions, Merrill Housing Initiative, $40,000. For the Housing Rehab Revolving Loan Fund, $156,979. For the paint program, 0. And then for the construction of Sunshine Alley, 0. And then this is the estimated program income. There are a number of programs that have received CDBG grant dollars in the past. They now earn income. You are required to actually approve the budget for the income as well as the new grant dollars. The CDA did recommend allowing these programs to retain those dollars.
You can open the public hearing.
Sure. At this time, I would like to open the public hearing on item 4A. Is there anyone here wishing to speak on item 4A? Please come forward, state your name and your address. Is there anyone here wishing to speak on item 4A? Third and final call, is there anyone here wishing to speak on item 4A? Seeing none, I would like to close the public hearing at this time. Is there any counselor comments or discussion? Counselor Nuno.
Thank you, Mr. President. I had a question on the second chart, I guess, the sixth line down, community development, code enforcement, and inspection. I see that last year they received $152,000, and this year they're going to get $236,000, a little over $80,000 more. And I bring that up only because, if I understood correctly, that right now, the way this is proposed, we're only allocating to some of the emergency services in our community 12.5%. And federally, we're allowed to go to 15%. And so I'm kind of surprised in this very challenging time for so very many people in our community that are in very desperate situations, why we've chosen to not allocate fully these emergency services during emergency times.
Essentially, when HUD came in and monitored, we had our housing services director was funded 50% of the housing rehab revolving loan fund. They determined that that was not an eligible use of those dollars because he is not directly, he's not the one helping with the applications and doing the inspections and the construction, helping with the bids. And they, an appropriate place to put that 50% of the salaries was under code enforcement. And rather than have it go into the general fund and affect the operating budget, we essentially found a home for it within the CDBG funded code enforcement budget.
Makes sense, because we obviously it's a very, very tough budget session. So basically, just because we had a short gap in our budget for the city,
Yes.
We are then not going to be able to allocate fully to these services.
The services aren't impacted by this budget. The 12.5% is unrelated to essentially what's below the line. The 12.5% is based on the fact that at the end of the year, we have to have not be over 15%. Less than 15% of the expenditures have to be in public service. The last 3 years, we had what was called a neighborhood revitalization strategy area plan, which allowed us to pull certain public services out of that cap, and one of those was Merrill Community Center. Starting this year, we're not able to do that, and so we really have to stay firm underneath that 15% cap. And it was unrelated to the rest of the CDBG budget. That was really just based on a caution by HUD that we not go over that 15% cap when they were here this summer.
Thank you.
Can I make an additional comment? We still have to clarify that the HUD regulations state that it is 15% of actual expenses, not 15% of the budget. If you budget at 15% because you have all of these loan programs, you don't necessarily encumber all that money every year, you almost certainly will go over 15%. You'll be in violation of the HUD guidelines. The reason for the submittal to stay at 12.5% is simply in the budget, is simply to make sure we stay under the HUD guidelines with actual expenditures at the conclusion of the program year. So it is fully funded. We will be very close. I hope we don't go over because they warned us not to do that, but the actual expenses will be very close to the 15%.
Thank you. Wondering if that changed, though, because last year we did fund it at the full 15%.
Well, that was what I was explaining. That neighborhood revitalization strategy area, which has expired, allowed us to pull out, like Merrill Community Center, which was almost $30,000, out from underneath the cap. If we had left, because we actually did the calculation with Merrill Inn, we were at 17%. And when we pulled them out, we were at 14 point something. And they have to stay in this year because that revitalization strategy area expired. So, I mean, I happen to know that with it, we would, when we budgeted up to the 15%, we would go over.
Anything else? Any other counselor have a question or a comment? Counselor Vanderbilt.
Yes, thank you. Ms. Christensen, a question for the Equal Opportunity Housing, Fair Housing budget item. 25,000 was 2010, 20,000. Can you give us an update on the activities of that unit, and that, as I understand, we've had relatively minimum activity in there, but that's perhaps changing? Or where are we at? It seems like a lot of money for one complaint.
Well, we haven't had one complaint. We've had one complaint go through the whole process, and the EOHRC voted on a conciliatory agreement. The investigation for a fair housing complaint takes quite a bit of time. We pay for the investigation of that complaint, and then essentially at that point, the staff, along with the attorney's office, works out the options, and the investigator works with the person, both the person who's been, who is, the victim, and the person who's actually doing the fair housing, to try to work through that process. So there actually were 8 complaints that we're still working through the process on, and it also pays for the fair housing education and outreach that we do on a quarterly basis using a consultant. So it's not just the complaints, it's also the fair housing education and outreach, and we're required to do the education and outreach and the complaints per our city ordinance, and because we get community development block grant and home funds.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other counselor with a question or comment? And I believe this is no action tonight?
Correct.
Okay, so just information. Hearing that, before we go on to 4B, I would ask if the chief could get Counselor DeForest to come back in, please. Thank you. Item 4B, please.
Item 4B is the 2011 Home Investment Partnerships Proposed Budget. There is a Community Development Authority recommendation for approval.
Staff presentation, please.
Starting in July 2001, the cities of Beloit and Janesville and Rock County formed the Rock County Home Consortium to ensure that we had consistent dollars coming into Rock County to be used for new construction, housing rehab, and housing assistance. Prior to that, we each had to apply separately, and we essentially received what we received through the process. This allowed us to budget each year and kind of have a consistent source of funds. As part of that agreement, 15% of the home funds off the top must be allocated to a community housing and development organization. In the agreement, it was determined that that is it's called a CHODO in Beloit. And then 19% of the dollars come into the city of Beloit to allocate. This year, we are estimating that the city portion, the 19%, is $113,050, and the CDA recommended that that be allocated to the city's housing rehab loan program for both the homeowner loans and then the rental rehab loans, which would go to landlords. We have had a 75%, 25% split on those loans with CDBG, and this year it's being proposed that that same split be on the home dollars. And then we've estimated $89,250 for the CHODO in Beloit, and CDA recommended awarding that to NHS for their owner-occupied rehab program.
Thank you. At this time, I would once again like to open the public hearing on item 4B at this time. If there's anyone wishing to speak on item 4B, please come forward and state your name. Anyone wishing to speak on item 4B? Third and final call, anyone wishing to speak on item 4B? Seeing none, I would like to close the public hearing at this time. Is there any counselor questions, comments, or discussion at this time on item 4B? Seeing none, we move on to item 4C.
Item 4C is the 2011 Operating, Library, and Capital Improvements Budget.
Staff presentation, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. This slide here is summarizing the city operating and capital budgets for 2011. The general fund portion of the budget is anticipated to increase about 1.5%. The budget next year will be $30.1 million. Our debt service budget for next year is about $6.9 million. That's an increase of about 5.6%. Our special revenue funds, which are primarily our tax increment districts, the budget is proposed next year at $15.5 million. Again, that's an increase of about 5.7%. And our enterprise fund operations, which are predominantly our water and wastewater utility funds, the budget is proposed at $18 million next year, an increase of 5.8%. That makes up our operating funds for 2011. The total of all those $70.6 million, an increase of 3.9% proposed for 2011. We do have internal service funds with the city. These are predominantly funds that are established that serve city operations internally. They're composed primarily of our insurance operations, our health insurance fund for employees, our liability insurance, and we also have a fund set up for our fleet maintenance operation, and that budget is proposed to increase 1.4%, $10.9 million for next year. Our capital budget, the CIP for this next year is actually proposed to decrease over the current year, about $1.5 million, 11.6%. The total CIP budget for next year is $11.7 million. And the total overall operating and capital budgets proposed for the city for 2011 are $93.3 million, an increase of about $1.3 million over the current year. When we first started the budget process, we did have a gap of about $1.9 million in our general fund. We were able to bridge that gap with a series of reductions in expenditures within the respective general fund departments, and there were also a few revenue enhancements that were realized. Some of the things that attributed to balancing the budget for this year, we did have to use a little bit of fund balance in the general fund, $365,000 worth, in order to balance it. One of the big changes that helped in getting the budget balanced for 2011 was the 2-year wage freeze that we successfully negotiated last year with our labor unions, and this also extended to the non-union represented employees also. So the wage increase isn't scheduled to take effect until December 15th, 2011. So there's only really one payroll next year where there will be any type of salary increases expected. So we're essentially going the entire year without any increases in salaries. There is a proposed increase in the tax levy, $568,000, and that is within the statutory limit that we're allowed to implement according to the state of Wisconsin. We've calculated that the impact of the municipal tax levy increase on the average homeowner in the city is approximately $3.90, and that's based on an assessed value of almost $78,000, which is the average residential home value in the city. Some of the other highlights, we aren't proposing any increases in any of our solid waste charges or water or wastewater or stormwater utility charges for next year. As I indicated, the capital improvement budget is less, about $900,000 less than the current year CIP. And as you'll notice in looking at the document, the formatting is generally the same as the 2010 budget. These numbers I know are a little tough to see. I can barely see them myself on the screen. But this sort of gives you a breakdown of the general fund budget, shows the various revenue sources. Of course, the predominant one is the money that we receive from the state of Wisconsin, our intergovernmental revenue, which is almost $20 million. That represents almost two-thirds of our general fund revenues coming from the state of Wisconsin. The other more significant local generated revenue, obviously, is the property tax. And we'll get into the proposed tax levy in one of the following slides. And this also gives you a breakdown as far as expenditures. The various departments, our public safety departments are certainly the largest source of expenditure in the general fund. It makes up about 60% of our general fund budget. It goes for the police and fire departments. The Public Works Department is the next largest. But again, the overall budget for the city's general fund is $30.1 million proposed for next year. Some of our special revenue funds, and I would like to point out that this also includes the library operation. The library is considered a special revenue fund of the city. The other funds that we show here are primarily the tax increment districts. And most of the expenditures in the tax increment districts are either capital improvement projects that are scheduled for next year and are more detailed, identified in our capital improvement program, and debt service expenditures that we have to pay for improvements that have occurred in the past within these tax increment districts. We also have quite a number of grant-funded programs that are included as special revenue funds. Our enterprise operations, certainly this is an important component of the city's budget. As I mentioned earlier, this is primarily our water, wastewater, utility systems. Enterprise funds also include our ambulance operation, our golf course, our cemeteries that we operate, our transit system, and we also have a stormwater utility. All these are funded predominantly from user fees that are charged for the various services that are provided by these operations. Some of the funds do receive some tax levy support, primarily the transit system. They receive quite a bit of money out of the tax levy to help fund their operations. And for the first time in the last several years, our cemetery operation has also been included on the tax levy for 2011. Debt service, that's set up to pay our bond principal and interest payments on general obligation debt. It's about $6.9 million budgeted for next year for debt service expenses. Again, our internal service funds mentioned our insurance operations, our health and liability insurance, and our fleet management. We did budget an 8% increase for next year in health insurance premiums for the city's health and dental plan for its employees. And finally, our capital improvements. Again, this includes our regular construction-related capital improvement program, the $9.8 million. We have some engineering costs associated with the administration of our capital improvement program that are charged to the CIP. And this also includes equipment replacement and computer replacement funds that are used to replace equipment items that police cars, dump trucks, that sort of thing is included in the equipment replacement fund. And of course, computers, we replace those as needed. The tax levy for next year, we're proposing to increase about 4.5%, $568,000 over the current year. And as you can see, that's allocated among several different funding sources. Our general fund levy portion is increasing 3%. The debt service is the largest fund increase in the tax levy. It's about $275,000 increase over the current year, about 6.4%. And the impact of the tax levy increase as far as the tax rate, we're looking at a tax rate of approximately $9.99 per thousand of assessed value, which is an increase of a little bit over $1.09 over the current rate, and the percentage increase, 12.28% increase in the tax rate. But again, the tax levy amount is increasing approximately 4.5%. And with that, the next step, we did have our budget workshop all day today at the library. At this point, we're going to schedule the budget to be presented to the council for consideration at your November 1st council meeting. And I'll be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. York. This is on the agenda for a public hearing. So at this time, I would like to open the public hearing on item 4C. Anyone who's wishing to speak on item 4C, please step forward. Anyone wishing to speak on item 4C? Third and final call. Anyone wishing to speak on item 4C? Seeing no one, I would like to close the public hearing at this time and ask the councilor if they have any questions, comments. Councilor Van de Bogart.
Thank you, President Levy. Mr. York, I think you answered the question, but you indicated that the capital improvement budget is going to be totally down. On one of your slides, you indicated, $900,000, but then in another one, you indicated that it was going to be off by more than that, $1.5 million. I think you answered the question. The larger figure includes the engineering and some of the ancillary costs rather than simply the budgeted amount for the improvements themselves. Is that the discrepancy?
Yeah, there's actually 4 different funds that make up our total capital budget for next year. And the construction project, the CIP budget, is down about $905,000. Our equipment replacement budget for next year is down about $644,000. So if you look at all the different, the 4 different funds that make up our capital budget, the total decrease is about $1.5 million.
Thank you. I thought that's what the discrepancy was, but I just wanted to make sure.
Anyone else have any questions? Seeing none, I would like to close the public hearing at this time on that item. Move on to item 4D, please.
Item 4D is a proposed ordinance amending the zoning district map for property located at 3600 Eagles Ridge Drive from R3 Low-Density Multifamily Residential District to PLI Public Lands and Institutions District. There is a request for a first reading and a suspension of rules for the second reading. Plan Commission did recommend approval 6-0.
Thank you. Staff presentation, please, Mrs. Christensen.
3600 Eagles Ridge Drive is owned by the city and contains a water tower or tornado, siren tower, and accessory buildings. At this time, it is zoned R3, low-density, multifamily, and so staff initiated a zoning map amendment to change it from the R3 to PLI, Public Lands and Institutions Districts, to make it consistent with the comprehensive plan that the city adopted. Plan Commission held a public hearing on this item. roughly a dozen Eagles Ridge homeowners did attend to express their concerns about the last zoning map amendment we had before this board, and staff did explain that that was not what we were dealing with. We weren't dealing with a multifamily application. And there was a letter in your packet which was submitted by one of the residents, so we wanted to make you aware of that. And at this time, they've indicated they don't want to meet with staff, but they wanted to make it clear to the council that there still is concern about multifamily, having any more multifamily out there. But Plan Commission did unanimously recommend approval of this rezoning to PLI, Public Lands and Institutions District.
Thank you. At this time, I would like to open the public hearing on item 4D. Is there anyone wishing to speak on item 4D? Please step forward. Anyone wishing to speak on item 4D? Third and final call. Anyone wishing to speak on item 4D? Seeing none, I would like to close the public hearing at this time and ask Counselor if they have any questions, comments, or concerns. Seeing none, I would like to entertain a motion to suspend the rules. Motion by DeForest. Is there a second? Second by Haynes. All in favor of suspending the rules, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Now to the merits. Is there a motion for approval? Motion by Noonan, second by Haynes. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes 7-0. Item 4E, please.
Item 4E is a proposed ordinance amending the zoning district map for properties located at 1111 Elaine Drive and 2608 Weiser Drive from M1 Limited Manufacturing District to PLI, Public Lands and Institutions District. There is a request for a first reading and suspension of rules for the second reading, and the Plan Commission recommended approval 6-0.
Thank you. Mrs. Christensen, please.
1111 Elaine Drive and 2608 Weiser Drive are owned by the city. 1111 Elaine Drive has a well on the property, and 2608 Weiser Drive contains a well and a planned reservoir. They are currently zoned M1 Limited Manufacturing District. Staff has submitted the application for a zoning map amendment from the M1 to PLI, Public Lands and Institutions District, to make this consistent with the city's comprehensive plan. Plan Commission did hold a public hearing and reviewed this item at its last meeting and voted unanimously to recommend approval of this rezoning.
Thank you. This time I would like to open the public hearing on item 4E. Anyone wishing to speak on item 4E, please step forward. Anyone wishing to speak on item 4E? Third and final call. Anyone wishing to speak on item 4E? Seeing no one, I would like to close the public hearing, and if there's any counselors have any questions, comments, or concerns. Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to suspend the rules. It's a motion by Van der Bogart. Is there a second? Second by Haynes. All those in favor of suspending the rules, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Now to the merits. Is there a motion for approval? Motion by Haynes, second by Johns. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Item 4E passes 7-0. Item 5 is citizens' participation. We come to a part of the agenda where citizens may come forward and speak. We ask you to limit your comments to 3 minutes. Refrain from any personal attack on council people or staff. We will not cut you off. However, we ask you to be respectful of the time and that there may be other people who would like to speak. It is also normal that we will not act on any item that you speak on tonight. This is just kind of for you to get up and speak, but council do not usually act on this. If your comments require further information, we would direct a staff member to get in contact with you. So I have 2 people tonight that would like to speak. The first one is Michael Zorell, and I hope I pronounced that correctly.
That's good.
Okay. Please step forward and state your name and your address.
My name is Michael Zorl, and my address is 1756 Carlisle Road in Beloit.
Okay.
And what I'd like to speak about tonight is leaf burning, being that it's October and the leaves are starting to fall from the trees. Last year, when I just moved into the property, my first year being there, I noticed that not all the leaves fall evenly from all the trees at the same time. And just so happens, for whatever reason, the trees that I have on my property, they like to hold their leaves quite a while, and they don't like to drop it until like the last second. And one of the problems with that is Leafland Compost Center closes their doors in November, and they also have limited hours during that month as well, so it makes it extremely difficult to properly compost the leaves. Now, my property is zoned R2, and just about 300 feet to the west of me is actually the border with the town of Beloit, where they have open season, you can burn your leaves no matter what, whereas in the city of Beloit, we have an outright ban. And what I'd like to do is encourage the city council to maybe take into consideration maybe some people that would like to safely burn their leaves. Right now, you can't do anything. Open flames are permitted. Right now in my yard I have a permanent fireplace. It's brick and mortar, and for 4 hours a day, all day long, I can burn all the sticks that I want in there, provided that they're at least 4 inches thick. But I can't burn leaves. The only way around it, based on the way the code is written right now, is to get a special permit from, I believe, the fire department and 2 other people. I did call the fire department last year, and what they told me was, you can ask for the permit, but it's not really worthwhile because it's pretty much guaranteed you're not going to get approved for it. So maybe one suggestion I have for the council is maybe create a list of standards that says, if you want a permit, okay, fine, follow 1, 2, 3, and 4, and as long as you follow 1, 2, 3, and 4, we can issue a permit. As right now, the only way to get rid of your leaves is take them to Leafland or have a truck pick them up, which of course it's cost the city money. You have the trucks running around, the trucks have pollution. And there's also an article in the Chicago Tribune that says, the title of it is Burning Leaves Has Its Benefits, and some of the key points I read was, leaf burning is practical, it's efficient, and an environmentally sound method of leaf removal. It quickly removes the leaf litter, which when wet produces high levels of mold and spores and other airborne pollutants. Burning costs the community nothing, since citizens take the responsibility of disposal. And one of the biggest problems is that there's a tremendous cost to the communities for time, and it's time consuming for pickup. It also mentions that when you burn the leaves, it does eliminate the pollution from the trucks that pick them up associated with leaf burning. And there's a lot of truck exhaust from slow-moving vehicles that adds to pollution. And you can cut down on the escalating costs of pickup by permitting, in certain cases, maybe with certain restrictions, some leaf burning. And it doesn't make quite much sense to trade one form of pollution for another, because one's costing you money, the other's not. And so I know you can't do anything about it tonight, but maybe the next meeting in November, bring it up, talk about it, maybe allow some sort of approval. Any questions from the council?
And then this is an opportunity for you to state your position, and then we would not have an opportunity to ask your questions at this time. But what we can do is maybe talk to the city attorney at some point and see what, procedurally, what we could do about it. But this is just an informational time for the citizens to get up and state what they believe or what they would like the council to do. So thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. The second person is Roger Anclam. Please state your name and your address, please.
Sure. My name is Roger Anclam, and my address is 7928 South Butterfly Road, Beloit, Wisconsin. I'm here this evening. I just want to introduce myself as Roger Anclam. I'm a candidate for the 45th Assembly District, and I know and have spoken with a number of you already regarding this. Obviously, I share your passion for being involved in government. I've spent 10 years on the Planning Commission in the town of Turtle. 2 of those years, I was the chairman of the Planning Commission, and I'm currently serving as the chairman of the town board. In that role, we, like you, are working on our budget. As I went through your numbers, as you went through them tonight, I must tell you that we don't share the same size of budget. But nonetheless, we're working on our budget. We currently enjoy a very good relationship with the city and good relationships with all of our bordering communities. And certainly, we want to continue to do that. Should I be elected to the Assembly District, which I fully intend to do, I would like to have a very good relationship with this council, with the city, as well as all of the neighboring communities that comprise the 45th Assembly District. I'd like to have a cooperative relationship, one where we have a closer bond than what I think exists with the legislators today. I just want to stop in, do this introduction, let you know that if you have any questions or any concerns that you'd like to address with me, I'd be more than glad to do that. You can contact me on my cell phone at 608-751-8104. Please just give me a call. And I thank you for your time, thank you for your support, and I thank you for your consideration. I tried to stay inside your 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. At this time, we're on a point of agenda, consent agenda. All items listed under the consent agenda are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless the council member so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the general order of business and considered at this point on the agenda. Is there any council like anything removed from the consent agenda? Councilor Johns.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to request that we remove item B from the consent agenda. Staff has discovered that this is not an appropriate use, and the applicant has been notified.
Okay, thank you very much. So now the consent agenda will be items 6A, C, and that's it. Is there a motion for approval of the consent agenda? Motion by DeForest, seconded by Haynes. Any council discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, passes 7-0. Item number 7 is ordinances.
Item 7A is a proposed ordinance to amend sections 2902, 2917, 2930, parent 1, parent B, and 2941, parent 2, parent A, to repeal and recreate section 29.06, parent 1, and 29.33 of the Code of General Ordinances of the City of Beloit pertaining to wastewater treatment system. This is a second reading.
Okay, Mr. Botts, could you give us the presentation?
The ordinance you have before you are some technical changes primarily. There are a number of things that we need to clarify, and this helps clean up the ordinance to satisfy the needs of the EPA's last audit with us. And really not much different than the information I presented at the last council meeting, unless there's some questions that the council may have as a result of that.
All right, are there any other councilor questions or comments? Mr. Levy had to leave for just a moment. I'm sure he'll be right back. But I'm taking over in his stead. If there's anything, I don't think it's going to be controversial. I'll go ahead and call the question. Is there a motion to approve the 7A?
Mr. President, Mr. Vice President, I would move to approve 7A. Second.
All right, Mr. Dench and Mr. Haynes, any other councilor questions or comments? All right, all in favor signify by aye. Aye. Those opposed? Very well, motion carries 6-0. Number 8 on the agenda is appointments. The Appointment Review Committee did meet and makes the following recommendations for appointment to the various boards and councils and commissions. To the Board of Appeals, Gregory D. Gall, to a term expiring May 31st of 2012. To the Board of Ethics, Milton L. Brown, Jr., to a term expiring December 31st, 2010. To the Landmarks Commission, 2 individuals, Sandra Williams, to a term expiring the 31st of October of 2013, and Donna Johnson, to a term expiring October 31st, 2013. To the Parks, Recreation, and Conservation Advisory Commission, a recommendation to appoint Mark Fischel, to a term expiring the 30th of September of 2013. Is there a motion to approve those appointments?
Second.
All right, Ms. Johns and Mr. Dench. Signify the return of our president. I'll go ahead and call the question. All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Those opposed? Very well, motion carries.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is item 9, council activities and upcoming events. Councilor DeForest.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to share the events I'm planning to attend over the next 2 weeks, and of course would invite residents to join me as their interest persuades them. A meeting with the Beloit Property Owners Association on the 19th. I'm looking forward to meeting with the area landlords about their issues and concerns as they strive to be responsible landlords for our tenants in the city. On the 22nd, I will be attending the Life Course Initiative Luncheon. This is a group that's working on African American infant mortality, and looking forward to meeting with local African American community leaders at that luncheon. On the 23rd is the Fire Department Award Ceremony, and I am always touched and honored to be invited and be a part of that ceremony. It's always a very moving experience. To take the time to honor our firefighters and the incredible work that they do in our city. And on the 24th is the installation of Pastor Ramsdale at Lighthouse Church, and we want to congratulate him for his appointment there and look forward to participating in the installation. And then on the 25th, I'll have the pleasure of speaking with a Beloit College public policy class. Professor Lieber has invited me to speak with a class about local government. So I always enjoy going to be able to attend a class and speak with students at my alma mater. And then finally, on the 25th, I would invite my colleagues who are able to join me. I'm going to be volunteering with the Kids Against Hunger, assembling packages at Beloit Memorial High School. That's on the 27th, and would invite the community, especially if they have any time to give, even if it's just an hour or two, to help assemble food kits. I'm so proud of our Beloit Memorial High School students who collected funds to make that endeavor happen. So I'm looking forward to volunteering in that kit assembly line on the 27th. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Dench.
Nothing.
Councilor Van der Bogart.
Yes, I'd like to thank my fellow councilors for a day well spent. We spent the entire day reviewing in quite detail and depth the city budget that you just saw presented by Mr. York. Certainly we took a day out of our activities to be over at the library. And thank you to my fellow councilors for a good series of questions and an intelligent discussion of the funding questions that are going to be presented and options that are going to be presented to us. I'd also like to thank the administration for a job very well done in terms of the presentation of the various departments, their budgets, their requests, the reasoning behind it. Is all very useful and goes into the decision-making mix that we'll be participating in the first meeting in November. I also will be attending a number of the items that Councilor DeForest indicated, although not nearly quite the number that she's going to go to, but I'll be at a couple of those on the rubber chicken circuit, if you would, for a number of those meetings.
Councilor Haynes.
Nothing to add, thank you.
Councilor Johns.
Thank you, Mr. President. I had the privilege of attending the grand opening celebration for the Hendricks Center of the Arts at Beloit College, and was truly impressed with the renovation of our old library and the recycling of an old building and all of the use that will receive over the next decades and generations. Beautiful use of that space. So I was very pleased to see what they're using it for, and all of the talent that's going to be in that building. Also, the same evening, I was able to attend Beloit Civic Theater's performance of Whodunit the Musical, which was a romping good time, and was great to see. Some of the cast members were from surrounding communities, and they brought in their own fan club. So it was very nice that outside communities were able to come in and see what our little civic theater had to offer. And then also, my plug of theater, sorry, got to use it shamelessly. People of all ages are invited to a haunted hayride out at Leeson's Park, the October 29th and 30th, put on by Beloit Memorial High School Theater. There will be a frightening hayride for the older and strong of heart, but for the rest of us, there will be stories and goodies and playground equipment. Admission is only $5, and the screams start at 6. And then also, and I have vague information on this, the Symphony Orchestra is having a season ticket sale, and it's $35 per season ticket, but I don't have more information. Sorry. That's all I have.
Councilor Newman.
Thank you. I just wanted to remind everybody, we still have a few weeks of our great farmers market. That's the second largest farmers market in the state of Wisconsin. So please take advantage of it. It's a wonderful social event, and it's a great pride of our community.
And I would also like to just thank my fellow councilors for a well-spent day today, well-thought-out questions. A big thank you to staff for their hard work on the budget, realizing where they could make probably some tough cuts and bring their best budget forward. I really want to appreciate that, because I think sometimes we overlook that, the amount of work that they have to do, things that they have to give up, and the thought process that goes into that big process before they even present it to us. So to the city manager and the entire staff of the city, I want to thank you for a job well done as well. That concludes council activities and upcoming events. Item 10 is city manager's presentation.
We have apparently a very timely presentation tonight on the city's yard waste program for this fall. I think, as these folks will hear in a moment, we do have a mechanism, several options available to help them get their leaves picked up this year without turning back our environmental program and beginning doing open burning, because obviously you can't do open burning for one residence. So if you do open burning, you're going to have to let everybody open burn.
Right.
That would have huge consequences for the city and for the urban areas. So with that, Mr. Botts, if you could possibly share some of that information with council and the community.
Certainly, be glad to. There'll be advertisements coming out in the local publications here soon, but our fall curbside collection program will start November 1st and go through the 19th. That'll be on your regular trash day. You'll be able to put curbside bags of leaves, grass clippings, and garden debris. And but you'll still need to put your $1.50 tag on bundles of brush and shrubbery. We want to make sure you use paper bags, or you can use back to nature biodegradable bags or other clean trash containers. Do not put plastic bags of yard waste out on the curb. They will not be picked up. You set these out during your regular trash day, and the tag bundles you can buy your tags at the City Hall's Treasurer's Office or Department of Public Works, Grinnell Hall, or Leisure Services, or there are other places around town that also sell the stickers. The brush and shrubbery can be no longer than 4 feet or 4 inches in diameter, and it must be bundled or tied. And try to avoid putting any type of litter in your leaves, because when we dispose of those, it doesn't go real well. Also, residents can take their yard waste to the Leafland Compost Center. They do have a variety of hours. They're open Monday and Tuesday from 9 till noon, Wednesday from 3:30 till 6:30, Thursday and Friday from noon till 3, and Saturday from 9 till 3. And this will be during what it is currently right now. And then in November, it'll be Wednesday from 2:30 to 5. They're closed the 25th, 26th, and 27th. The last day of service is November 30th. We'll also be offering our leaf vacuum service this year again. You'll need to contact our Public Works Department at 364-2929 to get an application for that service. It's $100, and basically you just rake your leaves to the terrace. Do not put them in the curb or in the gutter, because that gets out in the street and it causes other problems. But rake them to the terrace, and then the staff will come around and use our leaf vacuum truck and clean those up for you. It's a very nice service. There's a lot of residents who use that, and it works really well. So those are the types of programs we have available for this fall, and we hope everybody takes advantage of them. It is looking like the leaves are falling quicker this year than normal. Hopefully they'll all fall off and you'll be able to take advantage of it. But there's been times in the past where they haven't fallen. But we're looking fortunate this year that they're falling down, because we've been putting a lot of time out on the streets cleaning leaves today as we speak. So, are there any questions about the program?
Any questions?
Yes,
Councilor Van Bogart.
Mr. Botts, in November, are those dates that the Leafland Compost Center are going to be open, are they the same, the Monday and Tuesday, Thursday and Friday? The only change is the Wednesday, a little bit earlier and then closing at 5 o'clock, but those other days are going to remain the same?
From what I understand, in November, the only day that they're going to be open is Wednesday
Just Wednesday?
in November. The other dates are the times what they're currently open, yet less for the couple last weeks of this month.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Bott. Thank you. Item 11, reports from boards and city officers. We have none. Item 12, adjournment. Is there a motion? Motion by Johns, there, second by DeForest. All those in favor say aye. Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.